nuestro trabajo sea remunerado y que tenga un reconocimiento. COVID ha puesto en evidencia una profundización de las brechas existentes para el logro de este objetivo. Estas brechas existentes ahora dan cuenta de que podríamos tener un rezago de más de 2 décadas en el mundo laboral, que el cierre de brechas que se previó que podía tardar 100 años en cerrarse, ahora se habla de 135 años para cerrar la brecha entre los hombres y las mujeres. Entonces nuestro objetivo es que miren el derecho de las mujeres al empoderamiento económico, que el statement quédate en casa, que es un viejo conocido del patriarcado, no sea que nos quedemos en casa siempre, y que entendamos que la inserción de la mitad de la población, de este talento humano que tiene una serie de ventajas competitivas, es necesario para el crecimiento económico. De manera que la CIM está colocando esta realidad, está colocando las necesidades de las mujeres y está haciendo unas recomendaciones de rutas para poder cumplir con el derecho al empoderamiento económico y con el crecimiento económico que requieren nuestras empobrecidas economías en tiempos de COVID.
Esta organización es el guardián regional en defensa de la democracia, la libertad y los derechos humanos. Los países se han comprometido con estos valores a través de instrumentos legales como la Carta Democrática Interamericana, la Convención Americana de Derechos Humanos y todas las demás convenciones interamericanas. Nuestro trabajo es mantener los más altos estándares. Debemos ser objetivos, analizar los hechos, denunciar cuando veamos corrupción, inequidad o amenazas a la libertad. En esos casos, no podemos ser neutrales.
More than 100 years since the inauguration of this building, the OAS headquarters, our institution still brings together the peoples of the Americas to address our responsibilities as a partnership of nations. As we look to the future, our work must also focus on the construction of a positive agenda that continues to favorably impact millions of lives every day.
The COVID-19 pandemic brought unprecedented challenges to our member states and the people we serve. In response, the OAS Secretariat for Integral Development adopted a three-pronged approach by 1. Adjusting our portfolio of existing projects, 2. Exploring new projects to meet emerging needs, and 3. Expanding multi-sectoral partnerships. The results achieved in 2020 demonstrate the resilience of our member states and the commitment of the OAS SETI to work with member states and partners towards our common goals in the development of our region. Our Network on Competitiveness launched the COVID-19 Ideas Accelerator, sharing 250 tools, health solutions, responses, and recovery plans. The Network for Labor Administration published a portfolio of responses from ministries of labor to COVID-19, sharing over 420 measures taken to protect workers, employment, and income. Likewise, the Inter-American Teacher Education Network series, Teaching STEM in Quarantine, provided 117,000 teachers with key tools to continue advancing STEM education during the pandemic. Through its network and platforms, the Inter-American Committee on Ports promoted international and national best practices, guidelines, protocols, and recommendations on COVID-19 safety measures and continuity of logistic operations. Initiatives such as the Education in Times of Change platform allowed us to meet urgent needs by offering timely tools on virtual education and a dedicated space for ministries to share strategies, actions, and solutions. Other programs such as the Row Fund stepped up, providing emergency grants to offset the challenges imposed on our students by the pandemic. SETI's partnerships are adding value to member states in the form of technical assistance, training, and access to tools and services. In partnership with leading private sector institutions, we offered micro, small, and medium enterprises access to online tools and training, increasing their visibility and participation in e-commerce, a key to their survival and growth in the pandemic and post-pandemic era. A new OAS SETI Facebook initiative provided 85,000 MSMEs across the region with capacity building opportunities and WhatsApp business tools to aid response, recovery, and resilience building. The Caribbean Small Business Development Centers program achieved real impact, supporting new businesses, expanding sales, and driving growth. A new network of Caribbean SBDCs will broaden the program's reach. The Inter-American Committee on Tourism, the C2, convened ministerial-level policy dialogue in an urgent response to the impact of the pandemic on the hard-hit tourism and hospitality sectors. Policymakers and experts discussed biosanitary protocols, travel and visa facilitation, among other critical areas for the sector's recovery. Partnering with the George Washington University and the U.S. Bureau of Indian Affairs, we went ahead with the scheduled first Indigenous Tourism Forum of the Americas, pivoting to a virtual format and convening over 240 participants from indigenous communities, the private sector, and governments. SETI also integrated sustainable development practices in the COVID-19 response. The pandemic is a daily reminder of the links between water, health, sanitation, food security, and nutrition. We ensured the continuity of our water management projects in the Plata Basin and worked with governments and partners in the design of an investment portfolio valued at $90 million. Additionally, the Energy and Climate Partnership of the Americas continued to share relevant best practices and responses to the pandemic on energy and air quality. These few examples indicate our collective impact. We cannot do this alone. It is now more urgent than ever to address the region's structural weaknesses, to recover from the health, economic, and social crises occasioned by the pandemic and prepare for future shocks. It is imperative that we work together as we risk losing recent development gains and seeing millions fall back into poverty. It is time for the region to redirect course and pursue a more sustainable, resilient, and equitable future for all. We are in this together.
But the resilience building agenda is too big for any one stakeholder to address acting alone, and simply bringing together stakeholders, whether at the national, subnational, regional, or global level, is not enough. Effective, focused, and sustained coordination among stakeholders is paramount to provide countries with integrated and comprehensive support.
The OAS, as a hemispheric forum and honest broker, must continue to facilitate this process while we work with member states towards the attainment of the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. Cooperation, collaboration, and partnerships that include all actors strengthen us, enabling us to be more than the sum of our parts. We can and we must work together. The future of our region depends on it.
CIM tiene una agenda enorme en el tema de democracia y de liderazgos. El primer ámbito tiene que ver con la gobernanza electoral, para que esta gobernanza electoral responda a las necesidades con las que fue creada, y es buscar los espacios de redistribución del poder. Después hay un programa interamericano sobre el liderazgo de las mujeres, donde generamos conocimiento y también tenemos cursos de capacitación. Hay un poderoso curso que ha llegado a más de 1000 mujeres con más de 15 ediciones, que es para candidatas electorales, en las cuales conversamos con ellas, pero también nos ponemos en una agenda de solidaridad y articulación y alianzas entre las mujeres, a pesar de las múltiples diferencias ideológicas o de partidos políticos. También hablamos de los temas de violencia política, porque no es lo mismo llegar que quedarse, y la violencia política es una forma de ejercicio de disciplinar a las mujeres para que vuelvan al mundo de lo privado y enfrentar la violencia, hacer buenas investigaciones, buenas leyes que permitan sancionar la violencia política. Es parte de las aspiraciones de la CIM en este programa de liderazgo de las mujeres. La aspiración histórica de las mujeres es estar en el mundo del público, que nuestro trabajo sea remunerado y que tenga un reconocimiento. COVID ha puesto en evidencia una profundización de las brechas existentes para el logro de este objetivo. Estas brechas existentes ahora dan cuenta de que podríamos tener un rezago de más de 2 décadas en el mundo laboral. Que el cierre de brechas, que se previó que podía tardar 100 años en cerrarse, ahora se habla de 135 años para cerrar la brecha entre los hombres y las mujeres. Entonces nuestro objetivo es que miren el derecho de las mujeres al empoderamiento económico, que el statement "quédate en casa", que es un viejo conocido del patriarcado, no sea que nos quedemos en casa siempre, y que entendamos que la inserción de la mitad de la población, este talento humano que tiene una serie de ventajas competitivas, es necesario para el crecimiento económico. De manera que la CIM está colocando esta realidad, está colocando las necesidades de las mujeres y está haciendo unas recomendaciones de rutas para poder cumplir con el derecho al empoderamiento económico y con el crecimiento económico que requieren nuestras empobrecidas economías en tiempos de COVID.
Hoy, esta organización es el guardián regional en defensa de la democracia, la libertad y los derechos humanos. Los países se han comprometido con estos valores a través de instrumentos legales como la Carta Democrática Interamericana, la Convención Americana de Derechos Humanos y todas las demás convenciones interamericanas. Nuestro trabajo es mantener los más altos estándares. Debemos ser objetivos, analizar los hechos, denunciar cuando veamos corrupción, inequidad o amenazas a la libertad. En esos casos no podemos ser neutrales.
than 100 years since the inauguration of this building, the OAS headquarters, our institution still brings together the peoples of the Americas to address our responsibilities as a partnership of nations. As we look to the future, our work must also focus on the construction of a positive agenda that continues to favorably impact millions of lives every day.
The COVID-19 pandemic brought unprecedented challenges to our member states and the people we serve. In response, the OAS Secretariat for Integral Development adopted a three-pronged approach by 1. Adjusting our portfolio of existing projects, 2. Exploring new projects to meet emerging needs, and 3. Expanding multi-sectoral partnerships. The results achieved in 2020 demonstrate the resilience of our member states and the commitment of the OAS SETI to work with member states and partners towards our common goals in the development of our region. Our Network on Competitiveness launched the COVID-19 Ideas Accelerator, sharing 250 tools, health solutions, responses, and recovery plans. The Network for Labor Administration published a portfolio of responses from ministries of labor to COVID-19, sharing over 420 measures taken to protect workers, employment, and income. Likewise, The Inter-American Teacher Education Network series, Teaching STEM in Quarantine, provided 117,000 teachers with key tools to continue advancing STEM education during the pandemic. Through its network and platforms, the Inter-American Committee on Ports promoted international and national best practices, guidelines, protocols, and recommendations on COVID-19 safety measures and continuity of logistic operations. Initiatives such as the Education in Times of Change platform allowed us to meet urgent needs by offering timely tools on virtual education and a dedicated space for ministries to share strategies, actions, and solutions. Other programs such as the Row Fund stepped up, providing emergency grants to offset the challenges imposed on our students by the pandemic. SETI's partnerships are adding value to member states in the form of technical assistance, training, and access to tools and services. In partnership with leading private sector institutions, we offered micro, small, and medium enterprises access to online tools and training, increasing their visibility and participation in e-commerce, a key to their survival and growth in the pandemic and post-pandemic era. A new OAS SETI Facebook initiative provided 85,000 MSMEs across the region with capacity building opportunities and WhatsApp business tools to aid response, recovery, and resilience building. The Caribbean Small Business Development Center's program achieved real impact, supporting new businesses, expanding sales, and driving growth. A new network of Caribbean SPDCs will broaden the program's reach. The Inter-American Committee on Tourism, the C2, convened ministerial-level policy dialogue in an urgent response to the impact of the pandemic on the hard-hit tourism and hospitality sectors. Policymakers and experts discussed biosanitary protocols, travel and visa facilitation, among other critical areas for the sector's recovery. Partnering with the George Washington University and the U.S. Bureau of Indian Affairs, we went ahead with the scheduled first Indigenous Tourism Forum of the Americas, pivoting to a virtual format and convening over 240 participants from indigenous communities, the private sector, and governments. SETI also integrated sustainable development practices in the COVID-19 response. The pandemic is a daily reminder of the links between water, health, sanitation, food security, and nutrition. We ensured the continuity of our water management projects in the Plata Basin and worked with governments and partners in the design of an investment portfolio valued at $90 million. Additionally, the Energy and Climate Partnership of the Americas continued to share relevant best practices and responses to the pandemic on energy and air quality. These few examples indicate our collective impact. We cannot do this alone. It is now more urgent than ever to address the region's structural weaknesses, to recover from the health, economic, and social crises occasioned by the pandemic and prepare for future shocks. It is imperative that we work together as we risk losing recent development gains and seeing millions fall back into poverty. It is time for the region to redirect course and pursue a more sustainable, resilient, and equitable future for all. We are in this together.
But the resilience building agenda is too big for any one stakeholder to address acting alone, and simply bringing together stakeholders, whether at the national, subnational, regional, or global level, is not enough. Effective, focused, and sustained coordination among stakeholders is paramount to provide countries with integrated and comprehensive support.
The OAS, as a hemispheric forum and honest broker, must continue to facilitate this process while we work with member states towards the attainment of the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. Cooperation, collaboration, and partnerships that include all actors strengthen us, enabling us to be more than the sum of our parts. We can and we must work together. The future of our region depends on it.
Bueno, la CIM tiene una agenda enorme en el tema de democracia y de liderazgos. El primer ámbito tiene que ver con la gobernanza electoral, para que esta gobernanza electoral responda a las necesidades con las que fue creada, y es buscar los espacios de redistribución del poder. Después hay un programa interamericano sobre liderazgo de las mujeres, donde generamos conocimiento y también tenemos cursos de capacitación. Hay un poderoso curso que ha llegado a más de 1000 mujeres con más de 15 ediciones, que es para candidatas electorales, en las cuales conversamos con ellas, pero también nos ponemos en una agenda de solidaridad y articulación y alianzas entre las mujeres, a pesar de las múltiples diferencias ideológicas o de partidos políticos. También hablamos de los temas de violencia política, porque no es lo mismo llegar que quedarse, y la violencia política es una forma de ejercicio de disciplinar a las mujeres para que vuelvan al mundo de lo privado y enfrentar la violencia, hacer buenas investigaciones, buenas leyes que permitan sancionar la violencia política. Es parte de las aspiraciones de la CIM en este programa de liderazgo de las mujeres. La aspiración histórica de las mujeres es estar en el mundo de lo público, que nuestro trabajo sea remunerado y que tenga un reconocimiento. COVID ha puesto en evidencia una profundización de las brechas existentes para el logro de este objetivo. Estas brechas existentes ahora dan cuenta de que podríamos tener un rezago de más de 2 décadas en el mundo laboral, que el cierre de brechas que se previó que podía tardar 100 años en cerrarse, ahora se habla de 135 años para cerrar la brecha entre los hombres y las mujeres. Entonces nuestro objetivo es que miren el derecho de las mujeres al empoderamiento económico, que el statement quédate en casa, que es un viejo conocido del patriarcado, no sea que nos quedemos en casa siempre, y que entendamos que la inserción de la mitad de la población, de este talento humano que tiene una serie de ventajas competitivas, es necesario para el crecimiento económico. De manera que la CIM está colocando esta realidad, está colocando las necesidades de las mujeres y está haciendo unas recomendaciones de rutas para poder cumplir con el derecho al empoderamiento económico y con el crecimiento económico que requieren nuestras empobrecidas economías en tiempos de COVID.
Esta organización es el guardián regional en defensa de la democracia, la libertad y los derechos humanos. Los países se han comprometido con estos valores a través de instrumentos legales como la Carta Democrática Interamericana, la Convención Americana de Derechos Humanos y todas las demás convenciones interamericanas. Nuestro trabajo es mantener los más altos estándares. Debemos ser objetivos, analizar los hechos, denunciar cuando veamos corrupción, inequidad o amenazas a la libertad. En esos casos no podemos ser neutrales.
than 100 years since the inauguration of this building, the OAS headquarters, our institution still brings together the peoples of the Americas to address our responsibilities as a partnership of nations. As we look to the future, our work must also focus on the construction of a positive agenda that continues to favorably impact millions of lives every day.
The COVID-19 pandemic brought unprecedented challenges to all member states and the people we serve. In response, the OAS Secretariat for Integral Development adopted a three-pronged approach by 1. Adjusting our portfolio of existing projects, 2. Exploring new projects to meet emerging needs, and 3. Expanding multi-sectoral partnerships. The results achieved in 2020 demonstrate the resilience of our member states and the commitment of the OAS SETI to work with member states and partners towards our common goals in the development of our region. Our Network on Competitiveness launched the COVID-19 Ideas Accelerator, sharing 250 tools, health solutions, responses, and recovery plans. The Network for Labor Administration published a portfolio of responses from ministries of labor to COVID-19, sharing over 420 measures taken to protect workers, employment, and income. Likewise, the Inter-American Teacher Education Network series, Teaching STEM in Quarantine, provided 117,000 teachers with key tools to continue advancing STEM education during the pandemic. Through its network and platforms, the Inter-American Committee on Ports promoted international and national best practices, guidelines, protocols, and recommendations on COVID-19 safety measures and continuity of logistic operations. Initiatives such as the Education in Times of Change platform allowed us to meet urgent needs by offering timely tools on virtual education and a dedicated space for ministries to share strategies, actions, and solutions. Other programs such as the Row Fund stepped up, providing emergency grants to offset the challenges imposed on our students by the pandemic. SETI's partnerships are adding value to member states in the form of technical assistance, training, and access to tools and services. In partnership with leading private sector institutions, we offered micro, small, and medium enterprises access to online tools and training, increasing their visibility and participation in e-commerce, a key to their survival and growth in the pandemic and post-pandemic era. A new OAS SETI Facebook initiative provided 85,000 MSMEs across the region with capacity building opportunities and WhatsApp business tools to aid response, recovery, and resilience building. The Caribbean Small Business Development Centers program achieved real impact, supporting new businesses, expanding sales, and driving growth. A new network of Caribbean SBDCs will broaden the program's reach. The Inter-American Committee on Tourism, the CTOUR, convened ministerial-level policy dialogue in an urgent response to the impact of the pandemic on the hard-hit tourism and hospitality sectors. Policymakers and experts discussed biosanitary protocols, travel and visa facilitation, among other critical areas for the sector's recovery. Partnering with the George Washington University and the U.S. Bureau of Indian Affairs, we went ahead with the scheduled first Indigenous Tourism Forum of the Americas, pivoting to a virtual format and convening over 240 participants from indigenous communities, the private sector, and governments. SEDI also integrated sustainable development practices in the COVID-19 response. The pandemic is a daily reminder of the links between water, health, sanitation, food security, and nutrition. We ensured the continuity of our water management projects in the Plata Basin and worked with governments and partners in the design of an investment portfolio valued at $90 million. Additionally, the Energy and Climate Partnership of the Americas continued to share relevant best practices and responses to the pandemic on energy and air quality. These few examples indicate our collective impact. We cannot do this alone. It is now more urgent than ever to address the region's structural weaknesses, to recover from the health, economic, and social crises occasioned by the pandemic and prepare for future shocks. It is imperative that we work together as we risk losing recent development gains and seeing millions fall back into poverty. It is time for the region to redirect course and pursue a more sustainable, resilient, and equitable future for all. We are in this together.
But the resilience building agenda is too big for any one stakeholder to address acting alone, and simply bringing together stakeholders, whether at the national, subnational, regional, or global level, is not enough. Effective, focused, and sustained coordination among stakeholders is paramount to provide countries with integrated and comprehensive support.
The OAS, as a hemispheric forum and honest broker, must continue to facilitate this process while we work with member states towards the attainment of the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. Cooperation, collaboration, and partnerships that include all actors strengthen us, enabling us to be more than the sum of our parts. We can and we must work together. The future of our region depends on it.
For this afternoon, Good afternoon, everyone. Today we have a hybrid meeting. We have delegations present here in the Hall of the Americas and delegations that have connected online. Between those here and those connected in line, we have the following delegations: Antigua and Barbuda, Bahamas, Belize, Bolivia, Brazil, Canada, Chile, Colombia, Costa Rica, Dominica, El Salvador, the United States of America, Guatemala, Jamaica, Mexico, Panama, Paraguay, Peru, the Dominican Republic, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, St. Lucia, Suriname, Uruguay, and Venezuela. We have quorum, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, colleagues. Good afternoon. I'm pleased to declare open this regular meeting of the Permanent Council, and you all received the draft order of business, and we will consider that. The draft order of business, under item 4, you will see election of officers of the two committees, Hemispheric Security and Juridical and Political Affairs. We received a note from Canada today, and we thought it would be in consultation with them to put this item on the agenda for the next PC. So we consider only the Hemispheric Security today. That's the only change. Under other business, I have a very important communication to make, but when we come there, we'll see that. If there are no observations, then we adopt this agenda. Thank you. Before addressing the items on the order of business, I would like to first express our solidarity with the government and people of Belize following the severe devastation caused by Hurricane Lisa a few days ago, and with the government and people of St. Lucia for the catastrophic floods occurred last Sunday. OAS member states stand ready to cooperate with our brothers and sisters in these sister nations. In other matters, allow me on behalf of the Permanent Council to congratulate the delegations and people of Brazil on the general elections held on October 30th. We extend congratulations to President Da Silva on his election and wish him every success as the head of Brazil's government. Additionally, allow me on behalf of the PC to congratulate the governments and people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines and Antigua and Barbuda on the celebration of their national days on October the 27th and November the 1st, respectively, as well as to the governments and people of Panama and Dominica, who also celebrated their national holidays on November the 3rd. Dear colleagues, before considering the second item on today's agenda, I would like to present on behalf of the Permanent Council the commemorative gavel to our esteemed colleague, Ambassador Lou Ann Gilchrist, Permanent Representative of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Ambassador Gilchrist chaired this council during the third quarter of this year, a period during which she conducted the activities of this council with tremendous poise and efficiency. Ambassador Gilchrist, please receive this gavel as a symbol of our gratitude to you for your laudable stewardship of the OAS Permanent Council. I invite you to come forward. And if mine is missing, I may borrow this one or something. For the second item on the agenda, which is in response to the request made by the delegation of St. Vincent and the Grenadines through note CP/INF 9516/22, we will proceed with the election of a member of the Leo S. Rowe Fund Committee based on the provisions of Article 3 of its statutes due to the expiration of the term of service of the distinguished delegation of Paraguay last December. Before giving the floor to the delegations for the presentation of nominations, I would like to ask the Secretariat to show the very brief introductory video that the team of the Department of Human Development, Education and Employment of the Executive Secretariat for Integral Development has shared with us regarding the Leo S. Rowe Fund. Please proceed, Secretary.
The Rowe Fund, a student loan program of the Organization of American States, was established more than 60 years ago through the will of the late Dr. Leo S. Rowe. Dr. Rowe was the director of the Pan American Union, which is the precursor of the Organization of American States. The permanent council of the organization is responsible for the administration of the fund through a committee consisting of a representative from the OAS Secretary General and 4 member state representatives. The social mission of the Rowe Fund is to grant interest-free loans to students from Latin America and Caribbean OAS member states. The loans help finance higher education or research at accredited institutions in the United States. At the same time, the Rowe Fund grants interest-bearing loans to staff members of the General Secretariat of the OAS. This supplementary financial aid covers just a portion of studies. The Rowe Fund's vision is to promote diversity and integration throughout the Americas, with the understanding that graduates will return to their countries of origin to apply the benefit of their training. Many loan beneficiaries have contributed to the social and economic development in the region by occupying key positions in their country's public sector, academia, the arts, and business. Dr. Rowe devoted the greater part of his life fostering understanding and integration in the Americas. He demonstrated a special interest in educating the youth of Latin America and the Caribbean, a legacy that continues through his last will and testament.
Thank you very much to the SEDI team for sharing this video with us. I now give the floor to delegations wishing to make nominations. And the first is Paraguay.
Thank you very much, Chair. The delegation of Paraguay is pleased to nominate the delegation of Ecuador to be a member of the Leo S. Rowe Fund Committee for the vacancy that must be filled today. To cover this position that was covered by my delegation, the Paraguayan delegation, it is important for us to be consistent with proper rotation in these positions, and we state our assurance that under Ambassador Montalvo of Ecuador, we believe that this will continue consistently, and he has the unanimous of support of the members. Thank you.
Thank you. Chile.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chile would like to thank the delegation of Paraguay for its service, that the Roe Fund, and seconds the nomination of Ambassador Montalvo of Ecuador to take over and replace, and that it be approved by acclamation. Thank you, Chair.
St. Vincent and the Grenadines of Cruz.
Thank you, Chair. On behalf of the Roe Fund, I express our most sincere appreciation for the support provided by the delegation of Paraguay. We welcome the delegation of Ecuador as a member of the Roe Fund Committee and look forward to working with the representatives. Chair, the brightest and the best students, like those interviewed for the video, unfortunately we decided not to show all of the video, proceed from various parts of the world to attend prestigious universities in the United States for graduate and undergraduate studies. The Roe Fund is therefore pleased to provide students from Latin America and the Caribbean with interest-free loans up to a maximum of $15,000 each. In my capacity as chair of the Roe Fund Committee, I now highlight the following for the general information of the Permanent Council. Next year, 2023, the Roe Fund will be celebrating its 75th anniversary of proudly fulfilling Dr. Roe's vision to contribute to the human development of Latin American and Caribbean citizens of OAS member states by granting financial aid in the form of interest-free student loans for students at universities in the United States. The fund also provides educational and emergency loans to OAS staff members under specified conditions. When the pandemic struck in 2020, Chair, the Roe Fund responded swiftly by creating a COVID-19 emergency relief scholarship benefiting citizens of 19 OAS member states. 66 students were granted such scholarships for a total of $131,000. International students in the USA were particularly affected by the pandemic as they confronted a variety of challenges, including relocation, isolation, and canceled job opportunities. The Roe Fund maintains an ongoing donation campaign. 100% of every donation goes towards scholarships. The assistance of OAS member states in this regard is greatly appreciated. Achieving a more balanced geographical distribution among beneficiaries is one of the goals of the Funds Committee. I therefore encourage the delegations to promote this important financial aid in their respective countries, embassies, and consulates to the United States and among their citizens currently studying in universities throughout the United States. The fund is particularly interested in attracting citizens from underrepresented countries. Prospective applicants may apply at any time during their studies in the USA. However, they should commit to return to their country within a year after graduation. This is to allow them to make use of the optional practical training if they wish to do so. The Roe Fund promotes friendship and communication among the peoples of the region through positive benefits of intellectual and educational exchange. If you have any questions or concerns, please do not hesitate to contact Ms. Lina M. Seriano, the coordinator of the program. I thank you all for the courtesy of your attention. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ambassador. I think it's good that we know a little bit more about the Roe Fund, and I congratulate also the permanent mission of Ecuador, in the person of Ambassador Mauricio Montalvo, on his election as a member of this fund committee. And I give the floor to Ecuador.
Thank you very much, Chair. It's very kind of you to utter these latest words. The delegation of Ecuador would just like to express its gratitude for the confidence that's been vested in us, and we hope to live up to it properly, as has been done by the distinguished delegation of Paraguay, in keeping with the purposes and spirit of this fund, as Ambassador of St. Vincent and the Grenadines has just evoked, and fulfills a very important role of service to all of our peoples. Specifically, I'd like to express my gratitude to the Ambassador of Chile for the support that made it possible for Ecuador to be nominated and for this committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you. United States.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Chair. On behalf of the United States, we congratulate Ecuador and thank you for your willingness to serve as a member of the Roe Fund Committee, and we also thank Paraguay for its service on the committee. My delegation would also like to take the opportunity to thank the efforts of the entire Roe Fund Committee, as well as the OAS staff, who together worked diligently to advance the fund's mission, ensuring its efficiency and continued growth. It is said that everyone dies twice. You die when your natural life comes to an end, and you die a second time when your name is finally forgotten. It is clear that Dr. Roe is far from this second passing because of his generosity and his vision when he was alive, and because of the fund that now bears his name, which continues to make a positive difference in the education and the lives of thousands as a result of this fund. Through the Roe Fund's supplementary financial aid, the OAS contributes to educational and social advancement throughout the region, fulfilling Dr. Roe's wishes and helping the entire hemisphere prosper. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We now go to the third item on the order of business, the installation of the subsidiary organs of the Permanent Council. Article 14 of the Rules of Procedure of the Permanent Council establishes that the following are permanent committees of the Permanent Council, without prejudice to any others that may be established as such: the General Committee, the Committee on Juridical and Political Affairs, the Committee on Administrative and Budgetary Affairs, the Committee on Hemispheric Security, and the Committee on Inter-American Summits Management and Civil Society Participation in OAS activities. To comply with the provisions of Article 28 of the Rules of Procedure, we will proceed with the installation of the permanent committees, except for the Committee on Administrative and Budgetary Affairs, whose mandate continues until January 1st, 2023. If there is no objection, the permanent committees of the Permanent Council are hereby installed. Agreed. Then we go to item 4, election of officers of the subsidiary following organs of the Permanent Council. And the next item concerns the election of these officers of the committees just installed. The General Committee is chaired by the Chair of the Permanent Council, pursuant to the provisions of Article 15 of the Rules of Procedure of this Council, and in accordance with Article 21 of the Rules of Procedure. The Committee on Inter-American Summits, Management and Civil Society Participation in OAS activities is chaired by the representative of the member state presiding over the summits of the Americas process. With that said, we will proceed to the election of the chair of the Committee on Hemispheric Security. In this regard, the Permanent Mission of Mexico, on behalf of the North American Regional Group, presented through note CP/INF 9517/22 the candidacy of Ambassador Luz Elena Baños, Permanent Representative of Mexico, to serve as chair of the Committee on Hemispheric Security for the 2022-2023 term. In accordance with a note from the Permanent Mission of Brazil, distributed as document CP/INF 9517/22, Addendum 1, the candidacy of Ambassador Baños has the express support of the member states that comprise the South American Group. I now give the floor to delegations and recognize Canada.
Thank you very much, Chair. A pleasure to see you and colleagues this afternoon. And this afternoon, I have the honor to nominate Her Excellency Ambassador Luz Elena Baños for election as chair of the Committee on Hemispheric Security. Ambassador Baños is a career ambassador, has served as a foreign service official since 1986. Born in Mexico City, Ambassador Baños has a bachelor's degree in international relations from the National Autonomous University of Mexico, a master's in international service from the American University, and a master's in defense and hemispheric security from the University of Salvador in Buenos Aires, a double graduation program of the Inter-American College of Defense. Her career as a diplomat is extensive, and it's taken her to Panama, El Salvador, Trinidad and Tobago, Guatemala, Korea, Italy, and the United States. Prior to her coming and joining us here as permanent representative of Mexico to the OAS in May of 2019, Ambassador Baños was the Director General for Liaison with Civil Society Organizations of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Mexico from August 2016 to January 2019. I think as many colleagues know, she's published various articles, essays, book introductions, chronicles in different media on relations with Latin America, public diplomacy, cultural diplomacy, international cooperation, and citizens' participation. And I just wanted to add to that very extensive and important biography. Of course, we all know Ambassador Baños, and we know her as an engaged and engaging diplomat and colleague who's very much committed to working with all of us and hearing all points of view. She was an excellent vice chair of the Committee on Hemispheric Security last year, and I know that she will be an excellent chair of the Committee on Hemispheric Security this year. So it's my honor and pleasure to recommend her for election by acclamation, if we can, this afternoon as chair of the Committee on Hemispheric Security. Thank you.
Thank you, and I give the floor to Ambassador of Argentina.
Gracias, Presidente.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to second the nomination of Canada so that distinguished Ambassador Luz Elena Baños chairs the Committee on Hemispheric Security in the next period, and I'd like to ask for it to be approved by acclamation. Thank you.
Our congratulations to the Permanent Representative of Mexico, Ambassador Luz Baños, on her election as chair of the Committee on Hemispheric Security. And I think that she is there, so we'll give her the floor. Ambassador.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I am grateful to the delegations of Canada and Argentina who nominated and seconded my nomination for my government to chair the Committee on Hemispheric Security, as well as the other delegations for electing me. It will be an honor to chair this subsidiary organ of the Permanent Council that's been recognized for its diligence and productivity and effectiveness. I wish to invite all the regional groups to submit their nominations to the vice chair as soon as possible so we can begin the work of this committee, and as soon as possible with a view towards negotiating the content of the omnibus resolution, promotion of hemispheric security, a multidimensional approach in time and form in vis-a-vis the upcoming General Assembly. I commit to work closely with the authorities of the OAS bodies that are accountable to the hemispheric security, the committee, and I'm available to channel the mandates of the General Assembly that are entrusted to this committee with regard to the field of security. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Ambassador, and success with your new job. We now go to item 5 on the agenda, and the next item is the distribution of mandates assigned by the General Assembly at its 52nd regular session and other previous sessions, which complies with the provisions of Article 30 of the Rules of Procedure. If there are no objections, I think that this was contained, the distribution of mandates, in document CP Doc 5826/22, correction 1. Is there anyone who wants to say anything on this? Otherwise, we adopt it. At this pace, I think we will be out of here very soon. So, and still have some time left for the Veterans Day, which will be very good to the delegation of the U.S., I think. Item 6. Let us now proceed to the approval of the draft resolution, transfer of funds from the 2021 regular fund program budget to the capital fund for OAS fellowships, scholarships, and training program. This was contained in document CP/CAAP 3862/21 as presented by the chair of the Committee on Administrative and Budgetary Affairs. If there are no objections, then this is also approved. So, esteemed colleagues, our next agenda item, number 7, is the consideration of the draft resolution to authorize an external firm to investigate allegations concerning the Secretary General, presented by the permanent missions of Antigua and Barbuda and Uruguay, with a co-sponsorship of the permanent missions of Guatemala, Paraguay, and Peru. Let me introduce this a little bit. On Monday, the 31st of October, I received a letter from Mr. Hugo Asensio, Inspector General of the OAS. In the letter, which was sent to all of you, he drew attention of the chair of the PC for a whistleblower complaint against the Secretary General. The letter ended with a proposal for the PC for its considerations, consisting of 3 elements. When I received the letter, I invited the Inspector General for a meeting the very next day. I also went to the Secretary General the next day to hear from his side and received from him the letter which he had sent to the Inspector General, which you also have. Both persons made clear that, in fact, the Secretary General sent the whistleblower complaint to the Inspector General and requested an investigation. And I want to underline this. The Secretary General himself asked for this investigation. At that point, I called a closed meeting with the regional coordinators because I wanted to get some feedback from them before moving ahead with this case. On Wednesday late in the afternoon, I received a note from Uruguay to hold a special PC on the allegations on Thursday. Since this issue was already dealt with by me and was not only of concern to one specific country, I delayed the meeting somewhat so I could consult with the regional coordinators. I met with the regional coordinators and invited the ambassador of Uruguay also to be present. Just before that meeting took place, I received as chair of the PC a second resolution on the subject from Antigua and Barbuda. During the meeting with the regional coordinators, it became clear that most, if not all, member states probably would be in favor of an investigation. But there were different views at that point about the type, cost, funding, and process of the investigation. It was also clear that many countries needed a couple of days more before a PC could be held. After this, several meetings were held by the regional coordinators with their own groups. Some wanted this to be dealt with during a regular PC rather than a special PC. Others suggested an open meeting of the regional coordinators first to see where we stand. In the meantime, the sponsors of the two resolutions had produced a joint resolution, which was discussed during the regional coordinators meeting. The new resolution actually took on board most of the issues that had been flagged earlier. The open meeting with regional coordinators was held on November 8th, and I believe that it was very useful in guiding us further. The sponsors of the joint resolution were open for suggestions, and some additions were made. The Inspector General also sent a second letter where, among others, he clarified why he would rather not undertake the investigation himself, but asked for an external investigation. You have also received that letter. Thus, we now have a joint resolution on the table that has followed the path of consultation, and I will give the floor to the two sponsors of this resolution. The Ambassador of Uruguay, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Chairman, for your understanding. I'm grateful for your attitude and your willingness to address this matter in the way we had requested that it be done in this session, for your willingness to carry this out. I should recall that the matter at hand it was requested that a investigation be carried out. That is no minor matter. It falls to me to remind you of this, given the sequence of events that have to be taken into account. It's never a minor issue to know who the whistleblower is, calling for an investigation or an audit. I understand that this was requested in an assertive way, that there be an outside audit held. It was the General Inspector who assertively requested that the audit that would be conducted would be external. That was the initial approach, and I'm just saying this because now as we move forward down the path of there being an investigation held, it is no minor matter. I understand that the will of the Permanent Council in deciding to have this investigation done according to the General Secretariat's general standards, as well as the specific legal requirements that apply, that we have been looking at over the last couple of days, and also the work done by Ambassador Sanders, diligent work. And it seems like this option is something that enjoys some support. So the task to undertake now would be to enable this. I don't know how the interpreters are translating this, perhaps authorization in Spanish legal tradition to authorize or enable something. Habilitación would be rendered usually as authorize in English. So ensuring the parameters of transparency, which would lend some greater veracity to the outcome in keeping with very specific terms of reference. We seek to ascertain the truth within this organization's rules and regulations. I'm not going to delve deeper into this. The coordinator regarding an expanded undertaking of this, that would focus on the core of this task. So then it would be prudent and necessary for the Permanent Council to act as the requester, but also as the reader of the results of this task that's being commissioned or entrusted. And in this double task, it would understand that this would follow two paths. Now, I understand that the Permanent Council must act with absolute transparency and examining the facts and the applicable law according to the jurisdiction that is requested, and in every other consideration that should not be present. So to the extent that this is done in a constructive way, we would all be contributing to that is, it would fall to us to do the best we can to carry this out. So then we would call upon Mr. Sanders to move forward with this request of the product that has brought us here today.
Yes, sir, you have the floor. Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. Before I introduce this resolution fully, may I say that the process by which we have arrived at this point on this resolution in this Permanent Council has been, in my view, in the best traditions of cooperation, transparency, dialogue, and compromise in which this Permanent Council has done its very best work. And I thank all of the delegations who have contributed to bringing us here. Mr. Chairman, it's just as well that we
reflect for a couple of minutes on how it is we got here and what it is we are talking about. On June the 3rd, as you pointed out, sir, the Secretary General wrote to the Inspector General requesting an investigation into an anonymous email from someone using the assumed name OAS whistleblower. In handing that request to the Inspector General, the Secretary General undertook to, quote, render whatever assistance the Office of the Inspector General may need to effectively and independently conduct the investigation. He also assured the Inspector General and his office that it will be free from interference from any agency of the General Secretariat and that they will have full access to all the records and information they request. In a letter dated October the 31st to the Chair of the Permanent Council, the Inspector General appeared to abdicate his responsibility to carry out the investigation by recommending that an external firm conduct it and setting out ways in which this could be accomplished. On November 1st, the delegation of Uruguay submitted a request to the Chair, together with a resolution, asking for a Permanent Council meeting on November 2nd regarding this matter. The Uruguay resolution stressed the urgency of addressing the matter and held open the possibility of the investigation being conducted by either the Inspector General or an external group. Meanwhile, a meeting of the CARICOM group of countries in this OAS and wider discussion with other member states revealed a strongly held position that no monies should be spent on an external investigation, since the Inspector General and his unit are already handsomely resourced by the taxpayers of member states to carry out the job. Those countries were also concerned that no money should be spent that might result in cuts in the number of OAS staff members or their entitlements. They work hard enough for both. They were also opposed to any reduction in the programs of the organization, particularly as cuts had been made to the budget and expenditures were trimmed so that we were down not to the bone, but to the marrow of the money that was available. On that basis, my delegation, as you said, Chair, wrote to you on November 3rd, submitting a resolution for consideration by the Permanent Council on this matter. The resolution insisted that the Inspector General be instructed to carry out the investigation, quote, utilizing existing resources to investigate any breaches by the Secretary General of the rules of the organization. No terms of reference were suggested in that resolution, precisely because the Inspector General is guaranteed independence of his operation and the modus operandi of his office is well established. In other words, as far as those countries were concerned, the Inspector General should have carried out his job. Now, immediately after the Antigua and Barbuda resolution was presented, I was approached by some delegations and by you, Chair, with the proposal that Ambassador Washington of Uruguay and I should explore the possibility of harmonizing our two resolutions to make the task of the Permanent Council easier and to allow it to deal with the issue as soon as possible. It was emphasized to me that no money to pay for the external investigation would be taken from the budget, and therefore no staff jobs would be cut and no programs reduced. The money would come from the Indirect Cost Recovery Reserve sub-fund. But even then, delegations such as mine did not want the money to be spent on an external investigation by a blank check. Therefore, Ambassador Washington and I worked on terms of reference for any external investigation so that we could limit the costs while allowing the investigator freedom to explore the relevant issues. It is on that basis that Ambassador Washington and I worked over the weekend of the 6th and 7th, Saturday and Sunday, and presented to the chair on Sunday night a joint resolution with terms of reference and a request for an open-ended meeting of regional coordinators for wider consultation before a meeting of the Permanent Council. That open-ended meeting of regional coordinators was held on the 8th of November, and it attracted participation of the majority of member states. It reached a recommended plan of action. First, it was accepted that this matter was now no longer a technical discussion. It was a political, legal matter for member states to decide. Second, it was accepted that the investigation would be outsourced to an external body that would take direction from a 3-person committee named in the joint draft resolution, namely the chair and vice chair of the Permanent Council and the Secretary for Administration and Finance. Thirdly, it was accepted that all member states any suggestions they had on the terms of reference. 2 delegations availed themselves of that invitation to make suggestions in writing concerning the terms of reference. They were Canada and Costa Rica. However, other delegations were consulted orally by both the Ambassador of Uruguay and myself. So we had the full benefit of a wide range of consultations. All of the suggestions made were taken into account in the changes to the terms of reference. Fourthly, it was accepted at that open-ended regional coordinators meeting that the final terms of reference would be submitted to the Secretariat for Legal Affairs for clearance that the terms were legally appropriate and presented no legal obstacles. The Secretariat for Legal Affairs gave its approval of the terms of reference, and the diplomatic note reflecting that opinion was circulated to all member states. After the regional coordinators meeting and work on finalizing the terms of reference was completed, the Inspector General wrote to you, Chair, on November 9th with new views on how the investigation should be handled and proposing changes to the terms of the resolution. In this regard, I point out 2 things. 1, the Inspector General had already clearly indicated that he had no wish to conduct the investigation because of what he said might be perceived as a conflict of interest. It was he who had also proposed that the investigation be outsourced. In any event, at the open-ended regional coordinators meeting, it had been accepted that the matter was no longer technical, but a legal, political one to be advanced by member states. Mr. Chairman, all the agreed positions of the open-ended meeting were satisfied, and you, Chair, named this date and this time for this Permanent Council to consider the joint resolution proposed by the delegations of Uruguay and Antigua and Barbuda with the co-sponsorship of Guatemala, Paraguay, and Peru. This resolution has been properly circulated in good time in accordance with the rules of the Permanent Council. Therefore, Mr. Chairman, my delegation proposes that this Permanent Council now vote on the resolution by roll call in accordance with the rules of this Permanent Council. I so propose. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ambassador. Considering the request made by the delegation of Antigua and Barbuda, we shall proceed to a vote to determine whether delegations do or do not approve the draft resolution being considered by the Permanent Council. The Chair wishes to remind delegations that once the voting has begun, no representative may interrupt it except for a point of order relating to the way it is being conducted. In accordance with Article 57, the decisions of the Permanent Council shall be taken by the vote of an absolute majority of its members. The Chair also reminds that under Article 58, voting will be done by roll call, and the vote of the representative shall be cast in favor, in opposition, or in abstention. And I think I will decide by the lot, the order of precedence and the voting. You won't believe it, but it's Suriname. I missed the Powerball though, but
maybe you should have an external investigation.
I want to ask the ASG to conduct the voting.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. We will now begin the votes by roll call, beginning with the delegation of Suriname. Suriname, how do you vote?
In favor.
Thank you, Suriname. The delegation of Trinidad and Tobago, how do you vote?
In favor.
Thank you, Ambassador. La delegación de Uruguay, ¿cuál es su voto?
A favor.
In favor.
Uruguay votes in favor. La delegación de Venezuela.
A favor.
In favor.
Venezuela vota a favor.
Venezuela votes in favor.
In favor.
Thank you, Ambassador. La delegación de Argentina, ¿cuál es su voto?
Delegation of Argentina, what is your vote? In favor.
Please wait until I call your name before you turn on your microphone, because the cameras have to focus on you when you vote. So just, thank you. Argentina vota a favor. Gracias.
Argentina votes in favor.
In favor. Thank you, Ambassador. The delegation of Barbados, how do you vote?
In favor.
Thank you, Ambassador. The delegation of Belize. Barbados, can you turn off your microphone, please? La delegación de Belice, can you tell me if Belize is connected? Ambassador of Belize, please. How do you vote?
Did you get that?
Ambassador, can you please repeat?
Belize abstains.
Belize abstains. Thank you, Ambassador. The delegation of Bolivia, la delegación de Bolivia.
Delegation of Bolivia, what is your vote? Online. We can't hear you, Ambassador. Can you hear me now? Bolivia votes in favor.
In favor. La delegación de Brasil, ¿cuál es su voto?
Delegation of Brazil, how is your vote? Brazil votes in favor.
How do you vote?
Canada votes in favor, Chair.
Thank you, Ambassador. La delegación de Chile, ¿cuál es su...
The delegation of Chile, what is your vote? Chile votes in favor. Thank you.
¿Cuál es su voto?
Colombia.
Delegation of Colombia, how do you vote? Colombia votes in favor. Delegation of Costa Rica, how do you vote? Costa Rica votes in favor. Thank you, Ambassador.
Fernando, can you tell me if Dominica is connected? The delegation of Dominica, can you please request the floor to cast your vote?
She's not requesting the floor.
Dominica, can you request the floor, please, to cast your vote? We will continue with the others, Mr. Chairman, and then come back to Dominica while we get somebody to try to call them. We will go now to...
Please call up. Now let's move to the delegation of Ecuador. How do you vote, Ecuador? Vote Ecuador in favor. Ecuador in favor. Thank you, Ambassador. The delegation of El Salvador. What is your vote? El Salvador in favor. Salvador in favor. Thank you, Ambassador.
The United States votes in favor.
Thank you to the United States. The delegation of Grenada, how do you vote? Fernando, can you tell me if Grenada is connected? Grenada is absent. La delegación de Guatemala, ¿cuál es su voto?
Delegation of Guatemala, what's your vote? Guatemala votes in favor. Thank you. Thank you, delegation of Guatemala.
The delegation of Guyana votes in favor.
Thank you, Ambassador. The delegation of Haiti.
Abstention. Of Haiti abstains. Thank you, Ambassador. The delegation of Honduras. How do you vote? Honduras votes in favor. Thank you, Ambassador.
Do you vote?
In favor.
Jamaica votes in favor. La delegación de México.
The delegation of Mexico, how do you vote? In favor. Thank you, Ambassador. Mexico votes in favor. The delegation of... We continue with the delegation of Panama. Panama, what is your vote? The delegation of Panama votes in favor. Panama votes in favor. The delegation of Paraguay, how do you vote? The delegation of Paraguay votes in favor. Thank you, Paraguay. The delegation of Peru, what is your vote? Peru. Microphone, Peru, please. I'm sorry, Ambassador Forsyth. I apologize. Peru votes in favor. Thank you, Ambassador. The delegation of the Dominican Republic, how do you vote? In favor. Thank you, Ambassador. The delegate.
Favor.
Thank you, St. Kitts and Nevis. The delegation of St. Thank you, Ambassador. And the delegation of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, how do you vote?
St. Vincent and the Grenadines votes in favor.
Thank you, Ambassador. Mr. Chairman, we'll make another effort to see if Dominica connects to cast their vote. Otherwise, we will tabulate the count. Oh, there. Dominica? Dominica, how do you vote? We can't hear you.
Good afternoon. My absolute apology. At the minute that you asked for my vote, everything went down. I am at home and I'm so sorry about that. Dominica votes in favor.
Thank you very much to Dominica.
And I give my apologies.
No need to apologize. Mr. Chairman, we will take a few minutes now to tabulate the count. With your permission, we will proceed to count. Mr. Chairman, we can announce the results of the vote. Voting in favor of the resolution, we have 30 delegations. 2 delegations abstain, and there is 1 delegation that is absent. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. With a vote of 30 in favor, none in opposition, 2 abstentions, and 1 absent, the Permanent Council hereby declares the draft resolution to authorize an external firm to investigate allegations concerning the Secretary General approved. I don't know if there are delegations that still want to take the floor on this one. Otherwise, I give the floor to the Secretary General.
Thank you, Chairman. Firstly, I would like to specifically thank the chair for requesting this process. We have to move forward always. Also, I'd like to thank Ambassador Alexander, Washington Oblada, you, Chair, all of you, for taking the time to examine this case and to propose solutions. We've tried to be transparent in our office since the anonymous message came in. And it was immediately conveyed to the Office of the Inspector General so that the appropriate inspection would be open and so that it would be conducted externally. And this was on the note on the third says that on the basis of an anonymous note based on those characteristics, there wasn't sufficient evidence to open an investigation, and so therefore so the appropriate denunciation had to be done. This was finally conveyed to you, Chair, by the Inspector General. And after coming back from the General Assembly, these delegations pushed forward the investigation. We've had the first resolution that talked about an external investigation with terms of reference set by the CAP, and then an investigation conducted by the Inspector General as it was proposed, and we went along with this resolution with the specific terms of reference. We have seen the efforts to move forward in this, and so that the investigation be conducted as best as possible. We have gone along with all the proposals for there to be transparency in the investigation with a vision that, or the view that in the end, we should settle this matter as a result of this investigation. Furthermore, I would like to confirm one thing, because at this time it didn't seem right to, but I think most of you are aware of the relationship. I do confirm, and I reconfirm, this is all very confirmable, that there was a relationship. There was. And diplomats have seen me, that I was a company, and many of you who were invited guests who saw this. She was my partner for almost 3 years, almost personal partner, the best in my life, perhaps, until months ago our relationship ended. We broke. Something, as they say, loving her was something I'll never regret. And we cannot change the mission of the institutions, its functioning, and the responsibilities that we have to the institution and the way it works, and that we can assure you that this will be the case. Now, thank you very much, Chair, and thank you for granting me the floor to speak.
Secretary General, we now move to the last item, item 8, other business. Distinguished colleagues, we want to give you the floor in case there is anything you want to bring for informative purposes here. But I would like to inform you that the Chair has received observations from some delegations regarding next year's regular session of the General Assembly. In this respect, the determination of the date and venue of the 53rd regular session of the General Assembly will be included as an item of the agenda at our next regular meeting. I give the floor to delegations if they have any other issue under other business. Otherwise, I have one last important issue, but let's see if anyone else. Canada.
Thank you, Chair. Let me take the floor for a moment this afternoon under any other business. I take the floor today on behalf of my delegation and the delegations of Antigua and Barbuda, Chile, Costa Rica, Ecuador, Paraguay, Peru, the United States, and Uruguay to draw attention to the sham municipal elections that took place on Sunday, November 6 in Nicaragua. We are deeply disturbed by the whole electoral process and by the outcome of the elections, which do not reflect the will of the Nicaraguan electorate and which only serve to further impose the regime's hold on power. The ruling Sandinista National Liberation Front seized control of 100% of municipal governments in that country. This result should not have come as a surprise. As was stated last week by the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, the context in which these municipal elections took place was in no way conducive to a free or fair process. It must be recalled that more than 200 civil and political leaders are still under arbitrary detention in Nicaragua. Many others have been forced into exile. The legal status of many political parties has been canceled, and civil society and human rights organizations are aggressively harassed. Further, many independent media have been forced to shut down. Chair, I'll conclude my remarks with some words in French, please. Le jour du scrutin, le régime a eu recours à l'intimidation dans les bureaux de vote.
The scrutiny and the regime intimidated the citizens, including electoral officials, to have an impact on the vote. We signed in 2001 the Inter-American Democratic Charter. It was designed to provide for peace in our region, and we must defend the principles in this charter. And we are condemning this disastrous situation. We ensure that the Nicaraguan people, we will not falter in our duty to uphold these principles and vis-a-vis these violations of the right to vote. Thank you very much.
Of Mexico.
Thank you very much, Chairman. The delegation of Mexico, in its capacity as coordinator of the core LGBTI group of the OAS, would like to read the declaration that the delegations signed of the members of this with regard to the Day of Visibility, Intersexual Visibility. I proceed to read it. The member states of the core LGBTI group of the OAS, we join into the commemoration to raise sexual visibility on the 26th of October, to put an end to all forms of discrimination and violence against LGBTI intersexual individuals. Intersexual persons naturally present bodies that are not in line with binary ideas of women or men, in keeping with the estimates of experts on the subject matter that the 3.3 and 1.7% of the world population are born with intersexual characteristics, which cover a broad spectrum of differences in both men and women. This diversity in intersex persons includes characteristics in which their reproductive organs and hormonal patterns and chromosome patterns are different. Intersexual persons are the targets of discrimination and violence, which are the result of prejudices just because of the traits and their needs. Their safety is violated when they're submitted to surgical procedures without their informed and free consent, with painful consequences, and often are irreversible on their physical health as well as on their mental health. In the framework of the special meeting in Lima under against discrimination, we uphold the rights of these people, and where human rights and prevention of discrimination and violence against LGBTI persons, it was agreed to urge the member states to take measures to ensure effective protection to intersex persons, and to implement policies and procedures that meet their needs, to ensure that such violence and discrimination against these people cease, and there is respect for human rights. The LGBTI core group of the OAS reaffirm its commitment to protect the human rights of all persons, independently of their, regardless of their sexual orientation, identity, or gender expression, or sexual characteristics, for the purpose of promoting inclusive and democratic societies. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Ambassador. And I want to remind you that next Tuesday there is a special Permanent Council also on this subject. I give the floor to the Ambassador of Venezuela.
Just briefly to inform the Permanent Council, particularly because if there are any ambassadors that don't know that, yesterday Rafael Cadena was awarded the Cervantes Prize. This is the most important prize ever that in Spanish language world, and for writers in Spanish, and it's a reason for pride at his age. Rafael Cadena is an example of rectitude and talent. Yesterday he received another award from those among all the ones that he's received. I just wanted to share with all the delegates that are here the joy that Venezuela feels in response to this new award for Rafael Cadena. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ambassador. This is indeed important that we get these prizes and that people are recognized. The United States has the floor.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. As a matter of other business, I just wish to speak on behalf of the U.S. government to recognize the public service and principled commitment of Elizabeth Abbey Merced, who was the Assistant Executive Secretary of the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights. Elizabeth passed away on October 17th. For the U.S. mission to the OAS, it was a pleasure and an honor to work with Elizabeth for nearly 3 decades to advance the cause of human rights and the rule of law throughout the hemisphere through the Inter-American human rights system. Elizabeth embodied the best qualities that any of us can bring to contribute to this organization: a deep intellect, political acumen, quiet determination, and collegiality. For over 25 years at the Commission, she worked to deepen regional respect for women's political and human rights, to facilitate interregional cooperation between the Inter-American and African human rights systems, and to enhance the OAS's role in bridging gaps between our hemisphere's common and civil law regimes, notably in the Caribbean. Mr. Chairman, today we highlight Elizabeth's legacy before this Council. We recognize her unwavering dedication to the defense of human rights and fundamental freedoms. She was a true friend and ally of the OAS, and she will be deeply missed. Our thoughts are with her family and her many colleagues and friends. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I don't see anyone else to take the floor, so my last remarks have to do with a very special event that will start on the 20th of November and will continue for some weeks. I think it's called the World Cup Soccer. And 8 of our member states are in there, in Qatar, and I think also some very important observers have equips there. So this is a major event. I don't say that we won't have any PC during that period, but we have made some accommodations for those who really want to see the games. In the delegates room, there will be a television, and it would be nice if some of the member states who are participating could donate maybe a shirt or a ball or whatever, put it in the delegates room so we can have a nice atmosphere there, and at least you don't have any excuse not to come to the OAS. Thank you for that, and with that I'm closing this session.